Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Side Hustle Seattle. Now, in my opinion, one of the best things that you can have access to as a notary, whether remote online notary, traditional notary, loan signing agent, doesn't matter, is access to the National Notary Association hotline. But this is a hotline where you can actually talk to regionally specific notary consultants about pretty much all things notary. And I feel like it's one of those things that's really helpful, regardless of if you're a brand new notary or a seasoned vet, because you're always going to encounter those moments where you're doing a notarization where you're just confused. You don't know what it's asking for, you don't know how to navigate it, and they're there to essentially walk you through some of those things. And the biggest question I get from especially like new notaries is like, okay, well, what do I do if this happens, if this happens, if this happens? It's kind of like having somebody who can always answer those questions. So I just want to talk about like what it is and kind of how it works. So then that way, if this is something that you've been looking for, you know how to get access to it. So let's get into it. So like I was saying, it's a hotline. So it's just a phone number and it's available, I want to say 6 days a week in a pretty broad spectrum of hours. You'll be able to call with questions. And some of the things that it can help you with are things like, let's say you get a notarial certificate and you're not quite sure how to fill it out or like what it's asking for, or maybe you don't know if it's actually compliant in your state, like the wording. They can walk you through that. Also, maybe you get an ID that you're not sure meets the requirements in your state, or you don't know what the credible witness requirements are in your state, or you just don't know what the witness requirements are in your state, period. They can also go over things like that. It's also one of those things where you always get like an unusual request sometimes for notarization, and not every state allows you to do certain notarizations, and especially when it comes to remote online notarizations, sometimes what you're allowed to do traditionally on paper and what you're allowed to do remotely don't always line up. Like maybe you can't do a copy certification or a copy verification remotely, but you can do it traditionally. They can answer questions on like if you can actually do this. I remember my very first loan signing, I was so confused because it was from California and I was in Washington, and so much of the wording was California specific. And I was just like, if I have to correct all this, I'm going to be crossing out like half of this document. And so I just wanted like half the notarial wording. And I was just like, how do I do it? What should I do? And I called them and they walked me through how to do it. And it just gave me peace of mind. And I think it's just important to remember what they can't do is like do anything that can be considered like legal advice, you know. Also, they can't like talk to your signer or your borrower. So if you're like, you know what, just here, get on the phone with them and explain it to them because I don't know. They're not going to do that, right? So you just gotta kind of know what they can't do. But honestly, to me, it's probably one of the best things that you can have. And my general suggestion is if you don't know if you want it, because it does cost money, right? In order to get access to the hotline, you need to either have bought notary supplies from them or like loan signing agent supplies from them in those like packages. You know, well, they'll offer you like, oh, you can get your like journal and your stamp and your, you know, your bond and whatever in those like packages. It always comes with like 4 years with the NNA hotline. Or you can just sign up for a membership if you don't need a package. And I think the membership starts for just 1 year, it's like $80. And I understand that, you know, you're probably tired of spending money on things, and like, I get that. So if you can afford it, absolutely try it for a year. If you like it, you know, renew for more years. But then also, one thing you can do if you don't want to spend money up front and you don't necessarily know if you want the NNA hotline, but you still want access to like maybe a helpful group or helpful information when you get into those situations where you have questions, you can always just join your state's notary Facebook group. If you go onto like Facebook and you type in, you know, your state plus notary, there's bound to be a number of Facebook groups that pop up. You could probably even get city specific and see a number of Facebook groups that pop up, and you can search and kind of get the general overview of it to see how many members there are, how active it is, if that's something that you're actually going to want to use. So that's a free way to get some help. The only thing about Facebook groups, I think they're great. You kind of build a community, and you know, it's like I said, a free way to kind of get some of that information. You can scroll through past questions just in case you have similar ones. But it's not always timely. You know, like people aren't just waiting by their computer ready to answer your question in a way that the NNA hotline is. Like you're going to get help right then and there. And so I think it's good to have both, or, you know, one or the other, depending on what you want. But that is just my tip for anybody who may be feeling not at ease going into some of these notarizations and feels like they just want something just in case they run into those moments. But let me know, do you have access to the NNA hotline? If so, have you used it, and like what did you use it for? And if you don't have access to the NNA hotline, but you currently are on a Facebook group, what group are you in? And have you found it helpful. But anyways, I just want to create this quick and short video for you just to know what is out there. I appreciate you watching as always, and I'll catch you in the next.